A blessed Good Friday to you. It is March 29th, and this is THG News Today with Mervyn Henley. Thank you to Carl & Sons for sponsoring today's programming. If you have not done so as yet, we ask one tiny, wincy little favor of you, and that is to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That option is right there on your screen, so tap or click it for me. There you go, and you're good to go. Thank you. I know that on this day, it's Good Friday, and you have to go and cook your dumplings and saltfish, so let's get right to the news. We begin this morning with news out of the Bahamas. We would have reported to you last night regarding the murder of a former member of parliament and deputy speaker, and we have more on that story this morning. Minister of National Security Wayne Munroe decried the killing of Free National Movement former member of parliament and deputy house speaker Don Saunders. He explained that the killing is unjustifiable and regrettable. Nothing can explain and justify these callous acts, he said. At a time like this, when somebody who is less than a stellar Bahamian is responsible for a death of somebody who is seeking very hard to be the best that he could be in this country, and that is very regrettable. Saunders was killed in Gambia Village on Wednesday night. Police said that the murder was reportedly linked to an armed robbery at a business establishment in that community. While decrying the callous act, the National Security Minister also reflected on knowing and working with Saunders beyond the political arena. He shared with the local media outlet there that he also knew the former politician on a personal level as well. He recalled that Saunders, who was a former attorney at law, would never shy away from reaching out to him for advice throughout his journey in the law field. Police investigations into Saunders' killing remain underway. It is such a sad situation there in the Bahamas, not only with this former member of parliament who was murdered, but also it is 36 murders for the year. After this murder last night, in less than an hour, there was another murder right there in the territory of Bahamas. We now move to news out of St. Kitts and Nevis. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis is moving towards economic diversification and minimizing its dependence on the citizenship by investment revenues. According to a report from Win FM News, economic diversification is one of the 7 pillars of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration's Sustainable Island State agenda. And the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew, he said his administration plans to bolster the economy through major inflows from tourism, construction, water and energy infrastructure, creative economy, agriculture, offshore education, manufacturing, and other sectors. An internal review of the nation's CBI Program revealed evidence of the former Team Unity administration's increased dependency on CBI revenues, according to Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew, as he presented the findings in Parliament on March 26. The federal government was over-reliant on Madam Speaker, and I have spoken to this on multiple occasions, that a significant detrimental fiscal policy was introduced where we became overly dependent, Madam Speaker, on the CBI program. Between 2008 and 2022, CBI generated 43% of the overall cash revenue of the federal government, Madam Speaker, which means that this program had become the fundamental pillar underpinning our financial architecture. Madam Speaker, between that time, we were able to raise 5.678 billion EC dollars in revenue at an average of roughly 378 million EC dollars. This is known. The Prime Minister added, in the last 5 years of the previous administration, CBI generated 50% of the overall cash revenue for the federal government. In the last 2 years of the previous administration, CBI generated 57% of the overall cash revenue of the federal government. This is the truest economic example of putting all one's eggs in one basket, Madam Speaker. In 2022, CBI revenues reached an unsustainable level of 60% of total federal government revenue. This unsustainable status quo cannot continue, and our administration has been focused on diversifying our economy. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, in a 2024 report, suggested to St. Kitts and Nevis a tightening of its fiscal stance in preparation for a potential CBI revenue decline. Prime Minister Drew is optimistic that economic diversification will pave the way for a sustainable island state. And finally, in our news this morning, according to Discover Montserrat, the government of Montserrat has agreed to extend the contract with the owners of MV Ferry Empress into 2025. According to Premier Joseph Farrell, under which access falls, Cabinet has agreed to extend the contract to April 2025. He said this was necessary to provide continuity of services, adding that they will be putting out a tender later in the year for a long-term ferry service. Farrell was speaking with Viona Alexander Smith, the Director of Information and Communication, in a live interview on ZJB Radio. They spoke about the recently concluded St. Patrick's Festival, access, and a recent trade and investment mission to Antigua. The MV Empress was initially contracted for a period of 5 months to provide transportation between Antigua and Montserrat. During this time, it has also provided day trips to Nevis, Redonda, and around the island tours. The 190-seater passenger ferry is owned by a Mexican shipping company. According to the Premier, we are proud to be able to continue serving the community. This represents the effort not only of the boat, but of all the people involved: immigration, customs, port authority, agents, crew, and the excellent coordination work of the Access Department. The Premier said April to October are the slowest months for travel, and the Cabinet has asked the Access Division to submit a marketing plan and schedule for the coming year in order to attract more visitors to the island. Over the past 5 years, the Premier added they have seen the benefits of ferry access for the island, and their last long-term contract ended in September 2020. The Premier revealed that operating the ferry service cost the government $17 million a year, inclusive of agency fees, immigration, customs services in Antigua and other islands. The ferry provider receives about $10 million minus taxes. One of the reasons ferry service is so expensive, the Premier said, is a requirement that the vessel be compliant with the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea. This expense, he added, is passed on to the government. The Premier said he was very pleased with this year's St. Patrick's Festival and agreed that more investment was needed to allow the event to continue to grow. Government investment, he noted, needed to be supported with the data. Figures released at the end of the festival said almost 3,000 traveled to Montserrat between March 1st and 18th. The MV Empress ferry service accounted for 1,726 of the travelers. And that concludes our news for this morning. It is Good Friday, and I do hope that you have a good Friday. This news is brought to you with the kind compliments of Carl & Sons on St. Martin. Do join us again Tuesday morning. We're going to take off Easter Monday, and we'll be back on Tuesday morning, God's willing, at 6 o'clock Atlantic Standard Time for a similar presentation. Enjoy and have a blessed Easter holiday weekend. I am Mervyn Henley. Carl & Sons have been serving the people of St. Martin for over 40 years. And the food and service get better and better. From early morning, customers flock to the bakery for their favorite sandwiches, cakes, pastries, you name it. First thing at mornings and last thing at afternoons, folks rush to Carl & Sons for simply the best. There are 2 locations, Coal Bay and on the Pondville. In Coal Bay, the opening hours are Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Saturdays, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Sundays, 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Opening hours on the Pondville, Monday to Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, 6:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. We also cater for weddings, parties, special events, whatever the occasion. It's Carl & Sons. Our staff, we are always happy to serve you. Call us today, the Coal Bay location, 721-544-2462. That's 721-544-2462. Or in Phillipsburg, 721-543-1059. That's 721-543-1059. It's Carl & Sons Bakery. We are here to serve you.